All right, welcome to a very special edition of Beginner Breakdown. I'm Jonathan Schrantz. I'm filling in for Mike Kummer once again. Due to the inclement weather, Mike Kummer was not going to be able to join us tonight. He's got his big truck, can't drive on the ice. So we got a little bit lighter class, but we got our true and loyal fans are here. They came out braving the weather. So thanks for everybody that came. Today we're going to go over games over one of our staff members. He's somebody that works only on Tuesdays. His name is Andrew Young, and he's going to have a baby. So by the time you see this, he might already have a baby. So a big congrats in advance. And we'll go over some of his games. I don't think he has a USCF rating, but we'll see his strength. He's probably about 1,400, 1,200, I don't know, somewhere in there. So we'll take a look at this. This first game is a game that I played against him. We were just playing on chess.com. It was a correspondence game, so we had 3 days per move or something like that. And most of it was played during work hours. So let's see what happened. I decided to play d4 because we had just recently, it was when I did my Note Boom lecture. So I figured maybe he'll play into that. He mentioned something about it. And he started to do that. So after d5, c4, he supported the center with a pawn, so now we have a Slav defense. And okay, one thing you can do is you can play knight to c3. But I played knight to f3, hoping to encourage him to play the move e6, which would be the Note Boom in the lecture that we went into. After something like this, I was just going to play knight to c3 and hope that he takes on c4 and then tries to protect his pawn. And all right, I had just done a lecture on it, and I think he was talking about it, so that's what I was hoping for. But he did something a little different. He played the main line here. And if you're worried about black taking on c4, you can play e3 here, but I played the main move. Knight to c3, and now black has a couple moves in this position. He can play the Slav just by taking on c4. a6 is a move, g6 is a move. But he played a move that I like to play a lot as black as well, the semi-Slav. And here white has two different moves. He can get his bishop out, which is the most aggressive, and he can play e3, which is solid, and in most lines white has a pretty nice, very slight, but a nice little advantage. And here is the man of the hour in the audience. Yeah, take a good look at that guy. Okay, so I brought my bishop out. And here, there's a couple different things that black can do. He played what's not, the most testing, bishop to e7. When you play bishop to e7, this is kind of like a queen's gambit declined, only you've already determined that your pawn was going to c6. And normally in the queen's gambit declined, you're trying to play the move c5 all in one go. So here it's kind of already a tempo loss, and that's kind of how the game panned out. Okay, also possible is the much crazier and more aggressive grabbing of the pawn. And this can lead to the Botvinnik system after, okay, white plays energetically. Black defends the pawn. And now e5. And it looks like, well, where you attacked your pin piece, what's your knight going to do? What move does black have to play here? Because you can't move your knight, because then you lose your queen. h6. Yeah, so after a move like h6, the main line goes, you drop your bishop back. And after g5, Danny Machuca is the only one that knows what white plays here.
Knight takes g5.
Yeah, knight takes g5, sacrificing this piece. And just to give you a little idea of how crazy these lines get, well, white's eventually going to regain the piece when he takes on f6. So the main line will go like this. You want to be sure you don't want him to be able to capture with a bishop without losing his bishop. And all right, we won't really go over this. This isn't the theme of the lecture. Let's take that guy. And all right, so stuff like this tends to happen, and we'll get some crazy position. And here's one of the craziest and wildest positions in chess. And I bring it up just to mention the possibilities. And both sides try to checkmate each other. And material means nothing in these lines. It's all about active pieces and checkmating and lots of wild and crazy possibilities. Okay, but Andrew didn't go in for the crazy stuff. Bishop e7. And even though it is like the Queen's Gambit declined with tempo down, because if you're ever going to play c5 in the future, it's like you lost the tempo. It's not all that easy to refute, and it's not like suddenly white has some winning move or anything. So I just played normally. I put my pawn on e3, Now at some time I can get my bishop out, and my bishop is defending my pawn, so if he ever takes it, now I can just simply recapture with my bishop. And here he developed a piece, makes sense. And now I waited to get my bishop out. I played queen to c2. And the reason I didn't just immediately bring my bishop out is black is usually waiting before he takes on c4 for white to make a bishop move. That way when you play the move d takes c4 and I take back with a bishop, I had to use 2 bishop moves to play the same move. So here I'm waiting, and okay, we'll see in the game he eventually took before I had to waste a move, which was to my advantage. So all right, he attacked my bishop, so I dropped back. And here, yeah, I think he should castle. Instead, he took on c4, so he didn't wait for me. If he castles, and then I move my bishop to one of these squares, and then he takes on c4, now it's this position, but it's his turn again, so that would cost me a little bit of time. So probably if he castled, I would try to delay moving my bishop for as long as possible. I might play a move like rook to d1, and I'm just waiting. But okay, but if we go back, he took on c4 right away, so now I get to take back with the bishop. And okay, he plays this move, which is very similar. It's like he's playing the Queen's Gambit declined here. And white has a choice now. Should he trade the bishops, or should he retreat back to g3? And I couldn't really tell what was best. I assumed maybe taking was objectively a little bit stronger. But I thought, I'm the higher rated player. I'm the one that's playing for a win here. And I thought I'd keep as many pieces on the board as possible. And the bishop is nice on g3. Black will have a hard time in the future ever breaking with e5. And black has to get one of these breaks in, either e5 or c5, to get a good position. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck with this bishop. And we'll see that in a lot of these games today, he gets stuck with a bad bishop, and he never gets it free. So, okay, castled. And now, here, what did I do? Okay, here I just brought a rook to the d file. Again, I'm just trying to dissuade him from any of these breaks. Well, I really got e5 under control because I got a pawn, a knight, a bishop. Everyone's protecting it. But I'm trying to dissuade him from playing the move c5, because if he does that, I have a rook on the same file as this queen. So if he does this, I can just simply take here. And then, if you take back, some bad things would happen based on the fact that, okay, there's a pin here. So stuff like this, I'm just trying to prevent him from playing c5. So that's why I brought my rook into the game. And, okay, he broke one of my rules here. Never play bishop to d7. And, okay, I tell all of my students that, and in some positions, right, like with every rule, there's a reason that you might want to break it. But here's a classic example of when you shouldn't play bishop to d7. So the point is, the problem is he wants to develop this bishop. It's obvious that this is the next piece that he needs to get out. So he needs to find a way to get his bishop loose. It's unlikely that he's ever going to play e5 and get his bishop out this way, because I got e5 really under control. So he should probably try to get his bishop out in the other direction. So he can play either b6 or b5 and get his bishop on the longer diagonal here. That's just typically where this bishop will end up going. The bishop just doesn't belong on d7. And okay, now I played a move that in hindsight I regret slightly, only slightly. I did something which violates the rule never do anything, right? That's the biggest secret in chess is, don't do anything. Black lacks a constructive plan here, so I should probably just play the move like h3, which in the future I allowed him to put his knight on h5 and take my bishop. So I should probably play h3, and then I should have a square to move my bishop back to. Instead, I did something. I pushed in the center. So, okay, I figured, okay, you're playing bishop d7. I'm going to do something now. And what's he going to do? He's probably going to take my knight. And it's a very pleasant position. I have a really nice center. But I did allow him to go in and get my bishop. So I was thinking, all right, instead of just making some legal move and then you get to take my bishop, I brought my bishop on e5 to provoke a weakness. I'm hoping after he plays the move f6, e6 will become a target. And later on, that's indeed what happened. f6 is probably not a terrible move at all, but it gives me a little bit something I can work with here. And he took. So, okay. Now if it's my turn, I might be thinking about playing a move like queen to b3 with a double attack. So, all right, he protected his b pawn. And I went ahead with it anyway, so forcing his queen to make another move if she wants to protect the pawn. Notice that, yeah, you pretty much have to protect with your queen. What will white play in this variation? Like, why can't you just protect with a king? That looks safe enough. Your queen gets to stay where she is. But white here actually has a really good move that I was planning on playing. And I'll give you a hint. We really want to break open this diagonal. So we really want to get this guy out of the way.
Push a pawn to d5?
Yeah, pawn to d5. And now, yeah, if this diagonal ever opens up, it's only going to be pleasant for me. And yeah, the king will be kind of in trouble. I'm just threatening to like push, so, or take something depending on what he does. So that would actually be really dangerous for black. So he played correctly. He defended with the queen. And now I have to kind of come up with an idea. I realized that black is probably going to play the move like b5. So I could consider playing a move like a4. The line that I saw in my head that I didn't go in for was if he does play this move. Here I realized, okay, I can win a pawn. But now I was worrying that because the b file is open, he's able to pin my piece. So I thought, okay, I'd have to play a move like c4. And then I thought he can play a move like a6, attacking my pinned piece. But actually, I have a good move here. And I was just doing this in my head. I kind of realized, okay, at the end of this line, maybe my e-pawn will be hanging. But white has a move to save himself here. Bishop to a4. So threatening to trade queens. The queen doesn't have time to take. So this would be my saving move here. But I didn't go in for this. I thought, okay, he can play the move b5 if he wants. I played e5. I'm just trying to lock down this pawn here. That's going to be the weakness I'm going to try to target for the rest of the game. And okay, now I'm thinking, okay, he did kick my bishop away. And so I have to retreat somewhere. So there's 3 candidate moves that I might pick from. And okay, I think bishop to d3 and bishop to e2 were the only 2 to really consider. And I'm thinking now of a light squared strategy. The reason is I have a light squared bishop. So I'm hoping I can somehow take advantage of all these weakened light squares around his king. So I had to determine how I wanted my bishop to enter the game. Did I want my bishop to go to d3 and enter these light squares, e2, and then enter the light squares over here? I ended up choosing bishop to e2. My plan is I'm going to put my knight on h4, and I'm going to bring my bishop in, and I'm going to jump into these light squares. That's where I'm going to focus my pieces here. Okay, a5. And again, I might consider a move like a4, but I chose to get on with my strategy here. And I'm just going to plunk a knight in here. All right. So he used his king to prevent my knight from coming in. I wanted to get my bishop into the game, so I got to do that anyway. And now I can put a piece on g6. So this was my big strategy here. He kicks my queen away. So, okay, I thought the most logical place was c2. My queen also can enter on the light squares. And he blocked with f5. So at some moment, I'm probably going to consider the move g4, attacking the light squares with my pawns. That's my big focus. Every move, I'm going to do something on the light squares here. But first I decided I'd jump my knight in. And it is kind of annoying for black because, okay, if you move your bishop, your rook is hanging. So you have to move your rook and protect your bishop. But either square you go to will leave you susceptible to some discovered attacks. So he went here, and at the moment of my choosing, I can move my knight away, and I'll be attacking your rook, which is just kind of a little annoying threat that's in the position. But I didn't go for it right away. I played g4. So yeah, again, I'm even using my pawns to attack the light squares here, and I might take on f5 at the right moment. So okay, so yeah, he got his king off that diagonal. It was a pretty scary diagonal, and I did indeed take here. Okay. Now I decided to jump my knight back. I'm attacking his rook, and he moved. And now somehow my big advantage in this position is I got a lot of pawns in the center. So like these two, they're going to have to win the day for me. Somehow I'm going to have to get these sorts of moves in and get my pawns rolling in the center. So here I played a tricky move, bishop to f3. And to demonstrate my big idea here, if we pass for black, I'll just make a null move here. My point was I'm going to play the move d5. And I'm trying to get these pawns rolling, and you can't take here because now, after this check, I get to pick up your rook. And okay, so that was my tricky way to get to play the move d5. And in the game, I did get to play d5, and so that was just good for me. Probably you should just move your rook over or something, or somehow just get off of that diagonal so that d5 doesn't make the same threats. Okay, but he brought his bishop over to g5, and okay, so I'm thinking this bishop, when it was here, was controlling this long diagonal here. So I go back to d3, and I'm thinking at just the right moment I might be able to jump into c5. So now that the bishop is kind of on an adventure over here, I think your bishop really belonged here, so you could prevent my knight from going to these squares. But okay. And then he did go back. So is that an improvement for him? Should I go back to f4 and make a draw? Well, now my big positional threat does come to be realized. I played the move d5. And yeah, so this is favorable. So now these guys are very, very strong, and I'm going to push them down the board. And so once more, you can't take because I check, and then I win the rook. Okay, so he had to play some other move, f4. Maybe g5 is a bit more testing, but either way, I'm pushing these pawns. So f4, and okay, I pushed. Now his bishop has to make a decision here. Which way should it go? And he went to g5. I think because my knight is really planning on using one of these dark squares, that your bishop should instead go to d8. That way, if I ever put a knight here, at the right moment, you can contest my knight and kick my knight away. So, yes, I think your bishop went to the wrong diagonal there. Okay, so I did indeed put my knight there. I'm protecting this square. The next pawn move that I got to make is e6. So I have to protect that square enough times so that I can push my pawns. And it's difficult for him because you'll notice it's hard to ever use this rook to prevent me from playing the move e6 because I can always, attack it, and there's nowhere safe to go. So, okay, so he played rook to a7, and now I'm trying to get the move e6 in, so I got to defend that square one more time. And now I'm ready to push my pawns. Okay, and okay, the idea of blockading makes sense, but here it's a big blunder. It loses at least a pawn, and maybe it's even worse than that. So I took, he took back, and then there was two moves that were really tempting here. Taking on c6 is perhaps the most obvious, and that's what I played in the game. The other move I was tempted to play was bishop to g4, not going for material, but simply asking your queen where she's going to go, and I realized there's not a lot of places she can go. If she goes to c4, I can take her, and then you have really weak pawns. I can go round this guy up at the right moment. If you go anywhere else, let's see, this is a safe square for the moment. Okay, I'm going to keep pushing, and my pawns are going to be rolling down really fast. And same with here. I might just keep pushing. So that was tempting, just getting the queen off the square that I need to push my pawns. So, but I ended up taking here, and then he missed the threat, which was unfortunate. So he played rook to f5, and not only am I thinking about just munching up all these pawns, I also had another threat in this position. So what was the final move that I played here?
Bishop to d5.
Yeah, bishop to d5. Okay, and he resigned. So the queen is pinned to the king here, and all right, with the fact that I'm about to win a lot of material, and these guys are still going to keep coming, he gave it up here. So yeah, it was interesting, this game. There's a couple inaccuracies out of the opening that helped me to get a really nice position, and then the fact that I provoked some weaknesses on the light squares really helped me out in the long run. Okay. All right, so we'll take a look at another game here, and we'll look at it from Andrew's perspective. This is a game he played on the internet against one of his old coaches. So, all right, online his coach is rated 22-31 at the time of this game, so not too shabby. And okay, it looked like he played like the stronger player. So we'll take a look at this one. All right. And now, okay, an opening that I'm not particularly fond of. In this position, I think the move c takes d5 is just a very, very good position for white. And I've won a lot of games this way with white, and it's just a good position. If black intends to play the Grunfeld, he should probably play the move g6, and only after knight to c3 play d5. And one of the main reasons is, in this position, if they play the exchange variation, which is common enough, and you play e4, now black has the option of taking this knight. And okay, and then he's going to try to undermine the center in the future. He's going to get all his pieces to attack the center. And because white has such a big center, it's in black's best interest to trade as many pieces as possible to nullify the effect of the center. When white has all his pawns in the center, sometimes it's hard for black to find good squares for all of his pieces. So it's to white's advantage to keep as many pieces on the board in this position as possible. Now in the game, he played d5 first. So now if you capture, and the knight takes back, and you play the move e4, well, now there's no option of taking on c3. So this knight will either go to f6 or b6. And now you can bring your knight out to c3, and you don't have to worry about exchanging one of the pieces. Keeping an extra piece on the board is in white's best interest. So I would prefer this way as white. Instead, knight to c3, which is, of course, in no means a bad move at all. It's just a logical move. So, okay. All right, and now we've transposed back into a Grunfeld. And then, okay, so white has quite a lot of moves here. Knight f3, bishop f4, bishop g5, queen b3 is even a move. So there's a lot of different moves here. But kind of like what we saw in the last game, he played e3, and this guy gets kind of trapped in. So in general, you want to get this guy outside of the pawn chain. So both of these moves are interesting. And you could be considered before you play the move e3, because then your bishop gets to a good square. So for the moment, this guy is just sitting there idly. All right. And so black just makes a logical move. And Andrew chose a unique setup here. Most common is just playing knight f3. The knight's the next most logical piece. You want to develop your knights before your bishops in general. And okay, so that's just a move that makes sense. Instead, bishop to d3. And he's going to put his knight here on e2, and we'll see how well that works out. So black gets castled, and so the knight does not go to f3, it goes to e2. Now in some positions, the reason you might want to put a knight on e2 is you're going to play f3 and e4. But that's generally only going to work if the position is very closed. Here, black can open the position at any time, and he can create more threats in the center. And so in the Grunfeld, typically the center is going to be wide open, and this is the kind of game that black is playing for. So this kind of setup here wasn't the best. It would have been better if the knight went to the normal square, and maybe the bishop was on e2. So, all right. And black responds appropriately. The way to take advantage of this poor setup is to open up the center as much as possible. That'll also unleash this guy. The more pawns you get out of the way, the stronger that bishop's going to become. And so he castled. And we got some captures, so stuff is going to be opening up. And he took with the pawn. If you take with the knight, black can get a nice position. Okay, you can kick the knight away and just play like knight to c6. Something like this would be really pleasant for him. Okay, diagonal's wide open. In general, he wants to keep a pawn in the center, so that was played. And his opponent took on c4. And when he takes back, now he has an isolated queen pawn, which isn't so bad in itself always. But in these positions, the compensation that white is looking for when he has an IQP is really active pieces and a big attack. So it would make sense if his knight was over here and maybe he could go to e5, and maybe his pieces were in better places to attack the black king. But here there's no real attack, and we'll see. Black it was a really nice demonstration of how to fight against the IQP here. So, okay. So he's putting some pressure on the center. H3. Okay, probably not a developing move. When you have the isolated pawn, you really want to get your pieces out as fast as possible. So maybe there was a better square we could find for this bishop. But h3 was played. Now, the move e6. It's possible to stay a little bit more flexible. You can play like a6 and b5. But e6 has its points. He's trying to take control over the d5 square. And so when you're fighting against an IQP, what you need to do is first control d5. That's step 1 of the 3-step process. And then step 2 is you can blockade on d5. Maybe one of these knights can jump in here and control the square. And then lastly, the 3rd step is you can begin to attack the pawn. You know, you can imagine wherever the queens are, and you can get your rooks, and you can get some pieces attacking the pawn. And so we see a nice demonstration here. Okay, the bishop goes to e3. And his intention with this move is he's going to put the bishop on b7 where it controls d5. And okay, after he attacks the knight, but black intended to move his bishop there anyway. So, all right, rook on d1 makes sense. And now we see it. So one of these pieces is going to jump in here to d5. And by blockading that square, black has a really, really pleasant position. All right, so the knight on f4, this is useful for blockading. And he might sometimes have sacrificial ideas, as in the game. Okay, with a threat. So he's got to move one of his pieces. And yeah, here he went in for a sacrificial move here. Bishop takes e6. Not the only choice. I mean, he could have retreated. And black actually gets a pleasant position after one of 2 moves. The game is the safest, so it's understandable that it was played. Also interesting is the move g5. Just, you know, not taking the bishop back right away, but now he's attacking 2 pieces. So in such a position, the bishop would probably have to give itself up, and now you can take back one of 2 ways. If you take with the rook, I mean, maybe this knight is jumping in, and you don't really want to lose your dark squared bishop. So also possible is taking with the king. And if you play knight to e6, I do intend to take it. I don't think that there won't be too much danger on this diagonal because I can blockade and I'll have to run my king back. But yeah, so that was also interesting, the move g5. Taking is, of course, the safest though. And all right, welcome, welcome. All right, so we got a fork, so he's going to win like at least an exchange back. And so in this position, white has 2 pawns for the exchange. So material is theoretically equal, but you'll notice the difference in strength of the pieces. Black has this knight d5, the nice d5 outpost for his knight, and he's more in position to attack the white king than white is to attack the black king. So just in general, black is a little bit better here just because he has the better pieces. So, okay, this check. And it's interesting, sometimes just because I notice there's a check here, it's nice to have a check in reserve. You know, the king probably wants to go to h8, so you helped him out. You might want to wait to, it's an inopportune time, like maybe when this guy's not defended, and you'd be able to check and like pick up a pawn. So I kind of like to sometimes keep checks in reserve, but it's by no means, you know, the worst move here. And all right, white gets his last piece into the game. And black here has a serious threat that was overlooked. Okay, so let's see. After a3, black has a winning continuation here. So we'll see if the audience can find it. Because black has a lot of good pieces. The rook, the bishop, this knight. I mean, this guy's kind of useful, the queen. Let's draw a lot of scary arrows. So what's the first move here? What did black play? What's that?
How long do we have?
How long do we have? As long as it takes you to solve it. All right, now I'll give the answer away. He took this bishop, which, okay, now after the f-pawn takes, we'll notice this f-pawn is no longer defending the g3 square. So now black is in control of g3, and the queen gets to slip in, and this is very, very dangerous for white. Okay, the biggest threat is checkmate. Also hanging is the e-pawn. So what is he to do? Well, he probably should just bring his queen back, and yeah, your center is going to fall apart. But in the game, now after this move, black just has a mate in 2, and it's pretty interesting. So it is based on the fact that, yeah, these are our key players. You shut this guy down for the minute, but we don't need him to find the winning move here. So it's a very nice move, the move that was played in the game. We'll see if our audience can find it. And you can pause your video at home and see if you can find it.
I'll move by right.
It's black to move and win. Rook to f2. All right, this also looks very, very good. How do I survive? All right, it's not looking good for white. Yeah, all right. So there's presumably more than one way to win here. The game, yeah, I mean, black's position is just so good. There's a lot of great options. I like this move. It's just sort of a silent move, and there's no way to stop the oncoming mate. Notice the rook just controlling the whole f file, so he can make one move. Maybe he won't see his queens attacked, and then checkmate end of the game here. So yeah, that was just kind of the wrong setup from the beginning. If we just go back for just a second. There was two things just out of the opening. One was you played e3, and then you had a hard time finding a good spot for this bishop, which is kind of the theme of the first game as well. And then yeah, this setup just wasn't quite correct because black was able to open up the center, and then he got a massive attack, and white's pieces weren't very well coordinated. But he doesn't always lose. We'll end on a high note here. This game is a really good one that he played. So. All right, this is his game against D.B. Brooks, who I believe is also a pal of yours. So, okay, in this game, and you guys are both about the same rating when this game was played. So here we go. So we see D4 again, and okay, so the same sort of setup. And here his opponent chose knight to C3, going maybe for the Veresov, or maybe he's going for something a little different. And here the main move is bishop to G5. Bishop to f4 is also possible. But he went in for a gambit. So he's aiming for the black Mardimer gambit. And when you take this, he's going to play f3, and he's going to make it a true gambit. Black doesn't have to accept. It's possible to just transpose to a French. Maybe you can take and transpose to like a Caro-Kann or something. So often in this position, when I'm playing somebody that I know really, really wants to play a gambit, I just play the French defense, and then they're like, because when they play gambits, usually they're really, really aggressive players that want to attack. So if you want to try to be really positional, you can transpose. But this gambit doesn't have a very good reputation, so learning a line or two that's good against this is also a very good idea. So f3 was played, and you should probably accept the gambit, and he did. And okay, so why would white give away a pawn like this? Well, he's hoping for really, really fast piece development and an attack on the black king. Eventually, if you castle or just put a rook here, the fact that the f-file is open might be pleasant for white. Perhaps he can get his bishop to an active square. He should get his pieces out really, really quickly, but that's not what happened. All right, e6. We see it yet again. It's your favorite thing to do. Yeah, the main move is actually bishop to g4. So yeah, get that bishop out of there before you play the move e6. And all right, now a very, very unusual move. Bishop to d2, giving me another chance to prove my rule, never play bishop to d2. And this again is a situation where it's really true. White gave up a pawn, so he better get a lot of activity to have compensation. So after this move that doesn't do anything other than put a bishop in the way, it's okay. Now black has a very serious advantage, so it's very pleasant to be black now. You're up a pawn, and I mean this move just makes no sense. If he's going to move his bishop, it should come out to g5 or something, and play very actively. So all right, interesting. And this move I think is good. A lot of the times in the black Mardimer, you actually do put the knight in front of the pawn just to get a lot of pressure on d4. So that's typical enough. And you might think this was a mouse slip. Oh, maybe he meant to put his bishop on e3, but it was game in 3 days or something like that. So this was a long game. It wasn't a 1 minute game and he mouse slipped. So, all right. Okay, and the bishop could have stayed closer to home. Often when they play this line, they're going to get a lot of pressure, so you want to keep some defenders around your king. But this is by no means a bad move at all. And he gets his bishop out. That's a sensible enough square. And yeah, so now we're going to see one of the problems with having this bishop here is that it's going to get attacked. So probably he should try to keep this bishop and just move it away. But he leaves it there, and he protects it. So now when black wants, and maybe he should do it immediately, he can just grab that bishop before it ever has a chance to move away. But what happened? We castled, and okay. So black is obviously intending to take this bishop. And here, he's like, encouraging you to take it. So it's kind of wasting another tempo. And you can't play a gambit and then waste tempi left and right. You have to play really actively and get something going. Otherwise, you got nothing for your pawn that you sacrificed. So now he took. So now he's up a pawn and has 2 bishops. So things are looking pretty good for our protagonist. And here he had a good idea, but I think his execution was a little wrong. He wants to play the move e5, break open the center, because this king is still here. So that's a pretty good idea. You want to open up the center. He played rook to e8. Potentially, because the f-file is open, white's going to castle or just put a rook here, and he's going to get some pressure along the on the f-file. So you might want to keep your rook here. So perhaps better was just queen e7, a good enough square for the queen, and the rook is still protecting the f-pawn. We might move it to e8 and later, but maybe we won't need to. But okay. So he intends to play e5, which is the right idea. White castles, and okay, he's still preparing. He's going to do it. All right, so black, yeah, he didn't ever want you to double the pawns, but black was never really threatening to do that. So okay, but yeah, he's got to get his pieces to active squares. Maybe these knights are going to jump in here, create some pressure on h7. A good decision. And now he gets it in e5. So excellent. c3. So okay. And he took, which I think is also an excellent decision. So he didn't move his bishop right away. He inserted this intermezzo here. And now he's got to take back one way or the other. Probably he doesn't want to isolate his pawn. So he took with the knight. And okay, there's more than one thing you can do here. But I kind of like his move here. Bishop to c5. So you can't just take this because notice your queen would be hanging. So it's actually a decent square, and he's got a lot of pressure here on d4. And here his opponent made the big mistake that sort of cost him. He undefended the d4 square, so he played bishop to g3. So now black can win another pawn. He just takes. And so instead of just taking the knight right away, he grabs a bishop. Fair enough. And okay, so now we're up 2 pawns. We have a 3-on-2 on both sides of the board. So things are looking up. All we have to worry about is will white get some sort of attack going, because that's the only thing he has left to play for. But okay, so he was in check. He got out of the way. And now there's a lot of moves black can play. Yeah, this move is fine. Yeah, I know, he hooked you up. Now your bishop is good. And in this game, he got all of his pieces to really good squares. So that was excellent. Notice the queen is not threatening to take this pawn due to the hanging bishop. And okay, and black can choose a lot of just setups here. Let's see what happened.
Can I ask a question?
b3, yes.
Instead of moving the bishop up, what about if you just move the rook up to e3?
Yeah.
Rather than go with the queen and the bishop?
Yeah, so this is a very, very interesting idea. Is there any way I can take advantage of the weak back rank? Perhaps I can play here. My point is, if you grab this, either way you grab this, I'm taking here and checkmating you. So you do have to worry about the back rank if you're going to move your rook out of the way. Yeah, it's a nice idea, but I just assume after this I don't see what your next move is here.
You can swap off queens if you want.
Yeah, you can swap off queens, and okay, you gave a pawn back, and
And you've got the file.
yeah, so white can swap queens. In general, I would say black does not want to exchange queens here. It's true, you can go in. There's one idea of winning this. Let's put the king here. Is to just trade off the queens. That's a fair enough way to win. But it seems like white, his king is a lot less safe than black. So if anything, it's going to be black checkmating white, not the other way around. So white hasn't really shown that he's attacking anything yet. So I kind of like this move. Yeah, not trading the queens immediately. I don't think that's in his best interest. So b3, that's one way to protect the pawn. Now he's going to move his rook into the game. And now here he does. So yeah, again, I don't really particularly like this move. He can now take and create a slight structural weakness. You're still winning because you're up so many pawns, but I would prefer to keep the queens on the board. And there's a lot of just simple moves black might want to play. One way to use his majority over here would be to play c6, followed by a5, a4. That's one way to take advantage of the fact that your opponent played the move b3. Also, you can play the simple move g6, then he'll always have luft, and the bishop will be staring right at a wall. But he decides he's going to trade queens, and yeah, so white should know, okay, the queens are coming off anyway. He should probably try to get the positional weakness while he can. But instead, he decided to defend his queen and let black at the right moment take the queens off the board. All right, so we're still up 2 pawns. White's got nothing. And his technique here was really good from this point on. So yeah, so this is a game that you must be commended for, because this was well played here. Yeah, g6 makes a lot of sense, blunting the bishop. And then for some reason his opponent thinks I'm going to attack. But okay, he says no, you're not. He's protecting the squares over here. Maybe this guy will be a target in the future. And okay, so now he's going after the pawn, and it's not very easy to defend. So he won another pawn. So excellent. Now he's really, really winning. What to do? All right. So he gets some pressure here, forcing white to have to defend. And yeah, very, very pleasant for him. h5, sure. Perhaps he's thinking about h4, h3. Yeah, he can use either majority he wants to win this game. So offering the trade of bishops. I mean, yeah, white just really can't trade anything here, but he's like, all right, I'll trade. So he takes, and then I quite like this next move. He could, he might be thinking, oh, I'll just go grab this pawn. But he is allowing white some active play if he lets him take here. So a good decision. He just played the move f5. And this guy's still going to be weak for a long time. That weakness is not going away. So why allow your opponent to have any counterplay at all? And all right, he moves the pawn, but now you're not going to be able to defend these pawns. And all right, as soon as I have 3-on-1 on this side, 3-on-1 on this side, I think he was going to be able to win this game. So his opponent gave it up here. So that one was actually an excellent example. Once you were ahead, you played really well. Your technique was really good, which is hard for a lot of people. Sometimes you get winning positions and you allow too much counterplay, and then suddenly, uh-oh, you're lost. So yeah, that was an excellent display there at the end. A very nice finish.